Good morning. Welcome to SAR's May Main membership meeting, and say that 3 times. I'm Sherry Hunt, and I'm honored to be here as your 2023 incoming president. We have a great speaker today, but before we get to that, I would like to invite Christian McGlade to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. He is currently in the Leadership Academy and on the Community Relations Committee. We expect great things from him. Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Christian. So we're going to dive right into our speaker today. Shanta Patton-Golar. She's a thought-provoking national speaker on affordable housing, housing discrimination, and diversity, equity, and inclusion in the real estate and mortgage industry. With over 18 years in real estate, Shanta is a sought-after leader in various industry circles and never grows tired of impacting the real estate industry on every level. Due to her extensive industry knowledge, she has been interviewed and quoted by the Las Vegas Review-Journal, Las Vegas Business Press, the Vegas PBS, NPR, Bankrate, and participates in multiple television and radio broadcasts, including the Black News Channel, discussing diversity and inclusion, the history of redlining, blockbusting, housing discrimination, market trends in Nevada and around our country. Shanta has been a speaker at the Greater Bergen Association of Realtors, the National Association of Realtors, and the University of Las Vegas, to name a few. Currently director and the educational chair for the National Association of Real Estate Brokers, NAREB. She takes advantage of her platform to educate the minority community about home ownership, assists the organization with member engagement and chapter development, and directs the professional education for thousands of NAREB members. Shanta is also the immediate past NAREB Region 15 Vice President. Is that correct? Wow. That's credentials. A housing counseling agency, NID HCA Southern Nevada. Shanta regularly lends her expertise to leadership to local place-based community initiatives focused on homelessness, housing, and homeownership in underserved communities. She's also the director for the National Association of Realtors Relief Foundation. This foundation helps those affected by floods, tornadoes, and other disasters like wildfires. She is a co-founder of Make Homes Possible Coalition. MHP is committed to assist 25,000 Black families with homeownership. Her community love is also shown through her successful efforts to provide nearly 40,000 meals for a local Title I school. When Shanta is not working, she enjoys spending time with her husband, who's here, 3 children, and 3 doodle babies, plus a desert tortoise. Wow. Well, please welcome Shanta to the podium.
Hello. How are you all today? First, I want to say thank you so much for allowing me to come here. I did not know that I was going to bring crazy weather because it feels real nice in Las Vegas right now. So I don't know if you guys do this all the time, but it's a good day to stop because it's quite cold outside for folks who are used to 115-degree weather, which feels real nice and toasty for me. But I am grateful to be here to discuss some things with you guys. This will not be a kind of stuffy fair housing class. Fortunately for you, you will not be receiving any CE credits for this at all. So I hope that you are here to really just have a real conversation. I like to get real, right? And so I'm hoping that you guys are ready to have a real conversation. This will not be drawn out, but hopefully impactful for something you can take back into your community. In just a moment. So let's start off with something. Raise your hand if your parents or you or grandparents. I mean, this one looks nicer than mine, so that's okay. So raise your hand for me if you, your parents, or even your grandparents owned a home between 1950 and 1970. Okay. Do you know that it is very possible that they owned that home during that time, and it was most likely a direct impact or ability to own that home because of housing discrimination? Right? So let that kind of sit for a second, right? That is the benefit of generational wealth and home ownership, essentially off the backs of housing discrimination. And because of that, we find ourselves in situations where life looks slightly different because we understand that home ownership is the true way to building wealth. And that's the way we send our kids to college. It's how we build businesses, by investment property, everything. So you can kind of understand how home ownership, even though it's not something you've chosen or have been directly a part of, has affected your life just as much as has affected people who didn't have the opportunity for it. Okay. So let's play a little game. My husband always says, you don't need to know about me. They did a wonderful, great job, right, of telling you that. So let's raise our hand. Who has ever played Never Have I Ever? This will be easier. It's a safe place. It's okay, right? So the first one will be, never have I ever felt unsafe or fearful for my life when I've shown houses. Never have I ever been fearful that the neighbors would call the police on me while I was showing houses. Okay. Never have I ever been afraid to show a home at night because of the color of my skin. Really? Are we being honest in the room? Okay. No judgment here. Never have I ever sat in a room and had a seat at the table, but not a voice at the table because of the skin color. Okay. Raise your hand if you've ever been denied entry to a home because of your color of your skin. Okay. Those are just some of the things that real estate professionals of color, BIPOC community. Who's not aware of what BIPOC is? Okay, that's Black, Indigenous people of color. These are some of the things that BIPOC realtors deal with, right? And I will give you an example of that. About 2 years ago, I showed a home to a nice couple, not a minority couple. And you know how we walk into homes, most of the time, no one's there, so we get the benefit of saying, how ugly the house is, ugh, we might even take pictures to put on Instagram just to show everybody else how ugly that carpet is, but I found myself in a situation, I'm just as guilty as everyone else. I find myself in a situation where I guess luckily I showed the home and the homeowners were not there. But once our offer was accepted, I had the great pleasure of thinking that I would be able to walk through the home during the home inspection with my client and really be present, right? A lot of us like to do that, especially with our first-time home buyers, make sure we're right there holding their hand. Well, unfortunately for me that day, the homeowner was at home. And so I have the great pleasure of being really proud. I even posted on Instagram, like going to a home inspection, look at me. And I get there and I knock on the door. Hi, Shanta, Patton-Golar, here with my buyers. We're here with the home inspector who had already gone into the home. And they're like, the buyers can come in, but you can't. Right. And so you find yourself in a situation and we think, these things happened 60 years ago. And Las Vegas being the melting pot that we like to claim that it is, I'm now sitting in a home 24 months ago, and I'm unable to represent my client. So what do you do with a situation like that, right? Well, I do what my professional skills set has told me to do. So I sit in my car, and I FaceTime the whole time with my buyer. They gave the option of not going into the home. They gave the option of not purchasing the home, of canceling right then. But I know how much they love this home. And for me, even though it was a very embarrassing and heartbreaking experience for me to deal with, I had to choose to be a realtor first and a realtist, And so unfortunately, that was an eye opener for me. But fortunately for my clients, they got a home that they really loved, right? And it had been a long time since someone had reminded me so blatantly of the color of my skin that was not a part of this realtor organization. Because the realtor organization can typically remind you of the color of your skin quicker than the community ever can. And that's why it is up to us to level up and be better and to change the headlines that we read every day. I'll give you one other example before I move forward. Lock boxes are a hazard and an inconvenience for ladies like me who love to wear heels. And in Vegas, we don't have any grass. So I'm always, tripping through rocks and everything, just trying to be cute and show houses, bossing it in heels. And normally that is the extent of the issue when I'm showing houses. But I can tell you in the winter time, when it is 5:30 and it starts to get dark real fast, I start to get very nervous because I am a Black woman creeping on the side of a house in the dark, looking for a lockbox, and I have the potential to have an interaction with the police because the neighbor thinks I'm trying to break into the home. And so there are times like that when my family is nervous, my son's like, come home. Even he understands what that's like. My husband always wants to go with me everywhere, but I'm like, you can't divide and conquer, but those are things that you might not necessarily think about that affect us every day. And that's not just us in the Black community. That's BIPOC people all over the country, and especially in this country. Right. And so those are just some things I want you to kind of open your mind to as we move forward. So I'm sure you have seen these in particular here. Right. It says this realtor discriminates. Right. And obviously there's a realtor board there. You've seen attention white buyers, great white community for white people, racial restrictions. If you live in certain parts of the country, you will still see these in covenants everywhere. Funny thing is, about 2 years ago, the state of Nevada tried to pass a law that would require realtors to go into the covenants, find the ones that needed to be changed, and then go through the process of changing them. Thankfully, that did not pass because come on now, that's ridiculous, right? No property is said. Additions shall at any time be sold, conveyed, rented, or leased in whole or in part to any person or persons not of the white or Caucasian race. Right? Would you panic if a Negro moved into your neighborhood? This, if you're maybe like a second or third generation realtor, there is a possibility that your family members sold the majority of their homes based on blockbusting, right? Panic. There's Black people coming into the neighborhood. Sell, sell, sell right now before you lose all of the equity in your home. That was created by realtors, right? Did you know that NAR was opposed to fair housing? That they fought and used our RPAC dollars, whatever RPAC was at that time, to fight against fair housing. You could lose your membership if you put a Black person in a white neighborhood. That's the history that we have. The National Association of Real Estate Brokers, who is not familiar with them? Oh, they doing their job out here. Okay. The National Association of Real Estate Brokers was founded in 1947 because at the time, NAR would not allow membership to Black people. So they had to create their own association. They're celebrating 75 years this July. And so you might see them in here. Where are the realtors? All right. They're the realtors. They are your representatives in Sacramento. They're called realtors because they were not allowed to be called realtors. Okay. So they are your allies there. Okay. So that seems like, well, Shanta, that was so many years ago. A lot of times we get stuck of thinking that in the past, although maybe some of you parents were born during this time, were actively engaged in adults during that time. So let's talk about now. Black real estate agent handcuffed during house showing. Police deny race played role in 911 call. Eric Brown. If you guys have the pleasure of ever speaking with him, his story is heart-wrenching, but also extremely impactful. As you see a little bit further down, and I'll talk to you in a little while about things that you can do to help move progress forward. But one of the things that we did, myself and a small group of realtors from all over the country, is we set up a GoFundMe for his buyer. And we were able to raise $6,420 towards his closing cost. We felt like from a realtor standpoint, that's a bare minimum we can do because all of us are in this together. So that was some good that came out of that. He was able to close on his home and keep $6,420 in his pocket, right? So we see lawsuit, realtor prospective homebuyer illegally detained by police after retired cop calls 911. Jerry Isham, he's the regional vice president in the Midwest for the National Association of Real Estate Brokers. So we were quite scared for him when we heard that, but also relieved that he made it home because his son was in the car and he witnessed it all. Right? Agent's name and discrimination expose face discipline from the state. That's a part of the Long Island. You guys heard about that? The Long Island divide. That's steering in its finest way of being able to see in modern day history. Right? Wells Fargo Bank sued. What's new? But Wells Fargo being sued for race discrimination in mortgage lending practices. Wells Fargo rejected nearly half of their Black homeowner refinancing applications. So imagine the gap that is created when you have so many barriers. Who loves to play Monopoly? Right? I love to play Monopoly, but I lose every time. Right? But I'm a good sport. I'll go around a couple times, see if I could get Broadway, maybe. I think that's the end all. I'm like, I made it if I could just get that one, Boardwalk, right? So imagine if your opponent had 400 times to go around a board before you ever got the opportunity to put your piece on the board. That is a simplified way to understand housing discrimination. And some stats say 264 years is what it would take today. If white homeownership and white wealth was to stop right now, it would take 264 years for the BIPOC community and specifically Black homeownership to catch up. So imagine the extra roadblocks when it comes to Wells Fargo rejecting refinances, Wells Fargo, being sued, Redfin settling just in the last 30 days, digital redlining discrimination case. These are the things that are happening. So maybe we don't focus on this anymore because maybe we're past this. But this is a direct correlation to this. And so even though the headline has changed, the struggle is still the same. And it's up to all of us to ensure that we do the bare minimum, change the headlines, right? By our actions, we can change the headlines because the headlines is what the community reads. Who has seen the racism scale? Anyone? I love this scale. This scale can make people feel one or two ways. Normally, I like to focus just on the racism scale, but I'm a little rough around the edges, right? And so sometimes the delivery does not compute to certain people if their defenses are up. So there's another scale called becoming anti-racist, okay? Now, if you're on the top of this scale, we don't even need to talk, right? You can't be saved today, right? But if you are on the bottom part, we can make some change happen, okay? There's white savior, woke justification. Folks love that word, right? Performative ally, awareness, allyship, and abolitionist, right? So you might be anywhere on the bottom of here just because you showed up today. And a lot of times we get disappointed in ourselves because we feel like we've hit a certain level and then a situation will happen and we fall 3 steps back and then we give up, right? But understand as we start to push in to our uncomfortable conversations about race and real estate, it's a journey. So we have the first one, white savior, right? Whites were slaves too. There are plenty of successful people of color. They just need to work harder. If we can't use the N-word, they shouldn't either. There's no need for people of color to have their own safe space. We are all one. I hear that a lot when I talk about the National Association of Real Estate Brokers or my friends over at ARIA on NAREP, the LGBT Real Estate Alliance. I hear those all the time, that if we would just stop separating ourselves so much, it could move us past the space that we're in currently. And we would like to believe that. And I hope that that comes very soon. But until then, who is going to fight for the house that is on fire? Because we all care about the community, right? But the house that's on fire is the one that we have to give the attention to. And sometimes when we're trying to maintain the whole community, we can't divide and conquer and make sure that the house on fire is taken out, because when that house catches fire, the next one catches fire, and next one, before you know it, you've destroyed a whole community. Okay, so there's only one race, the human race. Love conquers all. I love the tree huggers, right? It's like love and sunshine, rainbows and unicorns, right? And that's okay. I love a good rainbow too. Love conquers all. I'll help you, but only if I lead. Performative ally, we find ourselves in that. Sometimes NAR finds themselves being a performative ally because they want to be a part of the change, but as long as their name gets credited for it, and we are all like that. That's no different than Uncle Ben's taking a slave off the rice. We didn't care about that. The rice is still the rice. What does that even matter at this point? Or, companies and corporations that will change the amount of people of color on their website, but still have boards that are not diverse, right? We have some realtor associations across the country that have diversity and inclusion committees, but not one person of color on their board. Most of the time, they only have one person of color on the committee, right? So progress, but sometimes it takes people a little bit longer. Being involved in this will help my reputation, or I expect praise or publicity. Sometimes people will fall in this level if you are a person who helps a homeless person, gives them water, and takes a picture of them. Good intention, right? But not everything needs to be posted for that. Okay. So a lot of times we find ourselves in performative ally. This is so great. I am so psyched to be able to help in this. I'm going to create a group. We're going to start strategizing on things, and, I'll give people a space at the table, so that they can bring their opinions in, and we can do this collectively. And then I say to you, was there not a table that you could join? Or did the table need to be made, created, and everyone was invited by you? So you think I'm doing a great thing. Like my eyes have been opened and I understand now, right? All I need to do is just create something, right? But that you might find yourself being a performative ally, because the first step might have been, let me find out the organizations that have probably known about this problem for many, many years. Let me go see if I can have a seat at their table so that I can help them and give whatever energy that I have, I can give to them. So sometimes performative ally isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just you're learning through your journey, and everyone's journey is different. And you might get one situation where you're like, hey, I'm an ally, I'm at their table, and then something will happen and you might shift back a little bit. And that's okay. That's the journey and the learning and being uncomfortable and kind of checking yourself. So there's the people that we like too, the awareness. My experience as a white person is drastically different than that of a person of color. That's when you have just said, I understand that we lived differently and that there are certain privileges. For all you people who raised your hand and said, yeah, I had parents, grandparents, or myself who owned a home during that time. I was not responsible for discrimination. I was not responsible for slaves. I wasn't responsible for any of those things. I'm a good person. You feel like you need to prove that you're a good person. You might even say that you have Black friends. You might even want to count them and tell us their name and everything. It's not that we don't believe you. We just know that if you had a Black friend, you wouldn't feel the need to tell me you had a Black friend. And if you had a Black friend, they would already work you through the paces, right? Because that's what friends do, right? They're supposed to snatch you and be like, girl, no, don't say that outside of this little group at all. They take care of you. So that's how we know, no, you just know people that are Black. It's okay. It's just a difference, right? You might be associated with someone and you've had conversations with them. That doesn't mean that you're friends with them. Because one thing is if a friend hurts your feelings, you call them out on it, right? If a friend is being insensitive to how you grew up or your religion, especially if you have different religions. I had a friend who was LDS, right? And I just don't know anything about it. Sometimes we would butt heads, right? But I had to respect that. But then that also means I don't go out, in the LDS community saying all sorts of random stuff. Like, well, my friend is LDS. No, she's not. Or you don't have a friend. Because if so, she would have let you know it was unacceptable for you to say these things. Right? So that's how we know you don't have any Black friends. So allyship. Yes, my life as a poor white person has been hard, but it isn't as hard as if I was poor and a person of color. So when you start getting to that mindset of it, you're on your way to being an ally. I know you guys have heard allies been shoved down your throat everywhere. You're like, what is it? How do I become one? Is there a membership cost? What's really happening? But that's where you begin to be an ally when you say, I got some privilege. I think white privilege is a superpower, right? And I just want everybody to use your superpower. Like, use your superpower. Where can we go? What room can you get us in? You go, and then I'm going to feed you all the lines you need to say, when you get there, because you're already at the table. That's an allyship. Like, look, I understand I have the voice, to speak up when I hear something that's not right, but I don't have the words. Then that's how you become an ally, because you come and say, give me the words, right? And then we can tell you, here you go, and that's an ally. You don't have it all figured out, but you know that you have a privilege and a superpower and you know you can use it. And that's all you need. We can give you all other instruments and weapons and anything else you need. But we know we just need you to understand that you have a seat at a table and in a room we can never get into. And when you go in there, we need you to go in there with the right talking points. Okay. So allyship also says that systemic racism is very real and it needs to be ended. If you guys are already thinking like that, then there's not a whole lot more you need to figure out. You're already an ally. And then there's the abolitionist. I will make space for people of color. I will tell you that I have the great privilege and honor of sitting as a director on the Realtor Relief Foundation. That foundation was all white, and someone very high up, a past president, gave up her seat so that I could sit on that board and have a voice that I could use moving forward. And she is an abolitionist, right? And so I will put my safety, health, and freedom on the line to fight for people of color. I will let them lead and not try to be at the center. I mean, you don't have to put your health and your safety off, be safe, but I'll fight for people of color. I will let them lead and not try to be at the center. Some of you might not be there, but I could tell you one good thing that you have accomplished. You have raised children who are natural born abolitionists. And if you don't believe me, watch them when there's a protest happening. They're out there with their signs. They're standing in front of their Black friends like, you will have to come through me if you want to get this person. And they're so cute, like 5'2" and everything. But you have raised those kids. Even though you might be too afraid to be an ally outside, you're at least doing something right, because when you are in your home, you are breeding and raising abolitionists. And sometimes they will be like mom or dad, or mom and mom, dad and dad, whatever it might be. They are there saying, listen, that's not right. Well, such and such, you're going to get in trouble at school. We don't care. They don't care because they understand the bigger picture. So maybe you struggle because the things you say and do might affect your job, or it might affect this circle that you're in or the boards that you sit on. But sometimes the sacrifice has to be made, because if we have to stand in the light, you do too, right? Because that's the only way the community can be saved. You can't say, oh, no, that house is on fire, but let me start wetting mine with a hose. Isn't that what y'all do in California? You're like, let me start watering my house down, with a hose so my house won't catch on fire, but the other house is on fire already. You could just go outside and help them, get rid of the fire in their house, and it'll guarantee protection of yours. Or you keep watering it like y'all water your lawns. We don't know what that is because we can't have grass, right? But you just water it like you water your lawns and hope nothing touches it. Are you doing that in your career? Are you just doing that everywhere? Do you sit at tables and you hear things that make you so uncomfortable, but you're too afraid to speak up? Those are some of the things that you must begin to look at. Then you have becoming an anti-racist. There's the fear zone. I deny racism is a problem. I avoid hard questions. I strive to be comfortable. Lord, people love to be comfortable. I talk to others who look and think like me. Let me throw something else in there for real estate professionals. Do your clients only look like you? Does your advertisement only look like you? Okay. Learning zone. I recognize racism is present. It's a current problem. I seek out questions to make me uncomfortable. I understand my own privilege is ignoring racism, and then you move over into growth. I identify how I may unknowingly benefit from racism. That was all the people who were willing to raise their hands and say, yes, home ownership was in my family during those period of times, but this is your route. This, I think, is the beginning to really start to think about your self-talk and how the things you say when someone's not around or the things you hear, that's where your journey is. And then you start to go into the learning zone and the growth zone. And I think that is directly impacted by how we function every day in our career. So, is your clientele diverse? Do they only look like you or your closest 5 friends? When you advertise your services, are you only using images of people who look like you? Are you only using, a mom and a dad with 2 kids and a little dog? Are you using images of an Asian family or a Black or interracial family? Are you using images of that represent the LGBTQ community? Are you just an ally in the natural sense of it? But does that actually trickle down to how you run your business? Here's an example of that. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with Marky Lemon. Marky Lemon and I were keynote speakers in New Jersey, I believe. And one of the things she said was she loves Christmas. She loves Christmas. She's got 3 trees, everything. She loved Christmas. In every room that she went in when she was showing houses, she kept helping them envision their Christmas tree. Ooh, you could put the Christmas tree here. If you want to have 2, you could put one over here by the window. And finally, by like the 3rd or 4th house, the client says, Marky, I am a Jehovah's Witness. So, right. Oops. Right. So in that sense, this is not she wasn't hateful or anything. She was so excited, but she put her unconscious bias and thought process into something so innocent. Are you doing something similar to that? You need to pay attention to those things that maybe you don't understand. When you have Asian clients, you automatically start telling them what streets the Chinatown's on, right? Are you automatically thinking of places where someone will be more comfortable? If you have a client that's part of the LGBTQ community, are you purposely pointing out neighborhoods where there's an abundance of them? You're staring with the best intentions, right? So you need to make sure that you are paying attention to those things. Here are some of the things that I have been up to, and I show this to you because it doesn't take an act of Congress to make change, especially in the realtor organization, because we know, right, we're the people representing it. As realtors, we're out there, we're representing fair housing and credit, for all, and down payment assistance and all these different things. So when people look at our organizations, they're looking at us to be the experts. So when they hear the realtor name and they see that logo, NAR has done a great job, even with the headlines, of showing that we're the ones to be trusted. And so when there's only just a few of us, it doesn't take a whole lot of things. This is when I was quoted on 10.5, as well as banning Confederate flags. Those are some of the things, giving opinions out there to journalists, changing the narrative and the headlines is what we need to do. I host a Clubhouse show with NAREB, Sheba Bites After Dark. We talk about Black homeownership. We talk about appraisal biases and ways to move forward. A lot of times we have a situation where we know the appraisal's not fair, but we don't know what to do about it. We know that maybe, our client was home at that time and the appraiser saw the color of their skin. We know all these things, but we don't really know what to do if we see that it happens. These are some of the conversations that we have there. And in NAR in San Diego, if you were there, hopefully you were able to drop into our session. We host a show called Real Talk, Race, and Real Estate. And that is the group of people you will see. The majority of them are NAR leadership. Michelle in the middle, short white girl. She is the mother of 2 Black children, and the wife of a Black husband or of a Black man. But what she had the benefit of is her white privilege allowed her to continue to be rainbows and sunshine. She's my rainbows and sunshine girl. Doesn't matter what, she'll put a good spin on it. And we need people like that to keep us motivated. She decided in 2021, it was Martin Luther King Day, and she wanted to have a conversation on this new platform called Clubhouse. But she didn't know where to start, and she didn't want to be the one to lead it because she was working hard on being an ally. So instead, she reached out to some of her friends in the industry, Tommy Choi from Chicago, Nina from California. And she took time to say, I would love to host this. Can you guys lead the conversation? And so, as you see, we represent all of them there, whether it's LGBTQ community, the Asian Pacific Islanders, Black, white, whatever it looks like, we were there. And from that moment, it took one conversation that then turned into a weekly conversation. And what we did not realize is there was a lot of executives and NAR leaders that were showing up in there because someone had told them, you guys better be watching this. You better be listening, because you would hear this crazy girl, Shanta, said, you're not upset that someone's being shot in the street. That's fine. I'm going to go burn down your local Target. And then you'll be really upset. And somehow that made people really upset enough to continue to listen. And sometimes that's what you need to do. You need to say something so crazy and extreme that you understand that something so small made you more upset than something so big, like a mother having to see her child, in the street dead. So we created this Real Talk Race and Real Estate that ended up turning into a Facebook group. Many, many things have happened in that Facebook group. But it allowed us to have a platform in our own session at NAR in San Diego, and we're hoping to bring that conversation back again. But the conversations we've had, there's been lots of tears. Over to the right, that Black man is Jerry Isham. I showed you his story. He shared his story. It was very difficult for him to do it, but he shared it, and it was very impactful to all of us. Okay. One of the things that I will tell you as I begin to finish up, you don't have to have all the answers, but here are some things that you can do. If you are an agent who likes to put your lockboxes on gas meters, do us all a favor, put them in front of the house, put them on the front door, put them somewhere that does not require people of color to have to go creeping on the side of the house when it's dark, because it jeopardizes our life every single time you do that. And that's something so simple that you can do that will make the change so impactful. Okay. One of the other things that you can do is watch your marketing. Just take that extra time to say, have I used this picture too many times? Maybe I should represent a different ethnicity in my next marketing. Be careful of the conversations that you have. Be mindful of the things you say, but be okay to call somebody out. If you're in your, brokerage meeting and somebody says something offhanded, ha, 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 be brave enough to say, look, that's not all right. It's not okay, right? Just be the person that says, as long as I'm in the room, it won't be said twice. If that's the only thing that you can do that, because that person will then go home and hopefully be impacted by you. It's hard to change or move someone when y'all don't speak the same language, right? And so we can sit here and I can go all over the country and talk about these things, but I can't sit in a room full of people who don't look like me and impact them the way you can. And so it's important when you sit in rooms of peers that look like you, that you equip yourself with the conversations that will affect change. Those are the things that you can do as a realtor Just simple little things that you can do to make a difference. Let me see if this will play. I'll just show you this quickly. No, it's not. That's all right. I was going to show you a video, but instead I will give you the website, makehomespossible.org. Makehomespossible.org. That is what you can do in your neighborhood and in your community. Because exactly a year ago, a group of people, housing counselors, got together, the state, the city, all led by a realtor and a realtist to say, let's see what we can do for Black homeownership. And once we got them on board, we got the backing of a major tech company, and we came up with a goal of putting 25,000 Black families in homes over the next 10 years. From there, we have gone into the part of certifying real estate agents to be able to represent the clients who come out of there. You'd be surprised how many people are renting with an 800 credit score, but just didn't know that homeownership was possible for them because they don't trust the process anymore because of headlines that I showed you. That's something that's huge and impactful that you can do, because it only took one realtor to do that. Imagine if a group of you guys, because I bridged the gap between the realtist organization and the realtor organization and said, look what we could do. And it's been very, very successful, even with the prices going up and interest rates going up. And that is obviously a big hurdle for the Black community. It's still better than where we were before. And those are things that you can do within your own community. So please check it out, makehomespossible.org. You'll see the people who are involved, all the down payment assistance companies and everything. And then we went on a campaign. We got Nelson Aguilar from the Raiders, previously for the Raiders. He came in and told his story, and then we hit the ground running. And it's only like 10 of us, but we're making a change. And that's something you can do within your community as well. Okay. Here's some of my book recommendations. I'm sure they have color of the law the hell out of you at this point, right? It's like everybody want to color law. But here's some other ones. White Fragility, Why It's So Hard for White People to Talk About Racism. And it's a very good book. I even listened to it last night as I was preparing for this, just to make sure that I was coming from a place of knowledge, but also a place of peace, right? Not to be upset, but really to say, here's some things that we can do together. And so I really would suggest that you read that. Cass, The Origins of Our Discontents, and then How to Be an Anti-Racist. It's not enough, right, to just say, I'm not racist. You have to not only not be racist, but you have to be offended by racism. You have to be anti-racism. And then if you haven't seen the movie The Banker, I highly suggest it. You will be able to see how Black people bought property back then, how they got loans by putting a white person forward as the representative, even though they were funding everything. And they essentially went to prison for it because they were not allowed to give loans to Black families. But it has some great people in it. You see Samuel L. Jackson. It's impactful, and it changed my life once I saw it, because unfortunately our history isn't taught anywhere else but Google, and so I didn't know until I knew. So I would highly suggest that you look at that. But I want to read something with you or for you, and then I am going to get out of here and let you guys continue on. From Cast, and feel free to read it. It's extremely impactful. America is an old house. We can never declare the work over. Wind, flood, drought, and human upheavals batter a structure that is already fighting whatever flaws were left unattended in the original foundation. When you live in an old house, you may not want to go into the basement after a storm to see what the rain has wrought. Choose not to look, however, at your own peril. The owner of an old house knows that whatever you are ignoring will never go away. Whatever is lurking will fester, whether you choose to look at it or not. Ignorance is no protection from the consequences of inaction. Whatever you are wishing away will gnaw at you until you gather the courage to face what you would rather not see. We in the developed world are like homeowners who inherited a house on a piece of land that is beautiful on the outside, but whose soil is unstable and rock heaving and contracting over generations, cracks patched, but the deeper ruptures waved away for decades, centuries even. Many people might rightly say, I had nothing to do with how this all started. I have nothing to do with the sins of the past. My ancestors never attacked indigenous people, never owned slaves. And yes, not one of us was here when that house was built. Our immediate ancestors may have had nothing to do with it, but here we are, the current occupants of a property with stress cracks and bold walls and fissures built into the foundation. We are the heirs to whatever is right or wrong with it. We do not erect the uneven pillars or joists, but they are ours to deal with. And any further deterioration is, in fact, in our hands. My why, my husband here who travels everywhere with me, my beautiful kids, and my beautiful doodles. I don't have a picture. I do get professional pictures of them. Listen, that professional picture of my baby girl in the middle, cast her on a commercial she's filming on Thursday. So listen, that's a new stream of business. And I don't have my desert tortoise here, but his name is Zeus. I am his foster parent. He belongs to the state of Nevada, but he is a part of our family. He will come when you call him, and he is great fun for everyone, including the dogs. I said when I was on the news last, with my experience and what I bring to the table, you're going to get me in all my Blackness. For many years, Black real estate professionals, especially the women in the room, we have straightened our hair to appear more white, to make people more comfortable. We have kept our photos off of our cards at the request or opinion of our brokers to make it easier for us. As long as we can just get in their face, then we can prove every bit of our worth. And then we can get that client. And I did that for many, many years until I started wearing my natural hair about 3 years ago. And so during that interview, I had some really beautiful braids all the way down. And she says, hey, you look different while we're on national news. And I was like, I do. And I said, but listen, these are the things we've gone through, but here's where I am right now. With my experience and what I bring to the table, you get me in all my Blackness. Here's my QR code if you want to connect and get to know each other a little bit. And with that, I want to say thank you so much for the opportunity to fly here and be a part of your Fair Housing May meeting. It has been my absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. I am Shanta Patton-Golar.